What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist here with
Gershwan.
and today we're back at it, doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again in a fourth grader.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put a question in front of your question because we get those questions first.
Without going back, how many times did I say over?
4. This question comes from James Kiltz. I've been working on a homebrew Necron dynasty. How would you guys recommend going about trying to name it? I started the army back in the very end of 7th edition, and I still have yet to name my custom army. Also, what do you guys think would win? An Avatar of Kane or a Catan shard? Keep up the great work. So let's answer the first, when it comes to homebrewing.
So in the Codex of the Necrons, there is a name generator, and I'm pretty sure you could find some online too. But
what I was going to say is, you want to focus on themes. And this is just, in general homebrew. It doesn't matter if it's an orc clan. It doesn't matter if it's a Space Marine chapter. You want to get, an essence of what the dynasty or the chapter is good at, and then kind of base it off of that.
Yep.
Themes. That's why themes are really, really important. So if you check out our 40 Facts and Lore on how to homebrew a Space Marine chapter, I talk a lot about how, it's nice to start with a some type of something that's gonna define your chapter. We have a friend who created space wolf hybrids, where they're we call them bear claw men.
yeah.
I don't even know what's the real name. Do you know?
Call the Ursa Wardens or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
You want to make it sound badass like that, because it does sound badass. It's a play on words with the bear thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Ursa, I believe, is the constellation or something like that.
But they eventually become bear claw men.
Yeah.
But you do have you want to have that theme sprinkled throughout the rest of your dynasty.
Yeah. And that is key, sprinkled, because you don't want to have the same thing that the space wolves have, where it's this is my wolf sword and my wolf ice gun, and this is my leader, Wolfie McWolfinston. Yeah. Because you could go overboard with it. Yeah, it's definitely maybe have 2 themes. That way you kind of spread out the naming of certain things, because again, it'll just sound cheesy and corny, and people won't take you serious. And even if you do come up with a badass name, the symbol too, the iconography, because I think that's where we got bear claw men for his guys, because on their shoulder pads they have a bear paw.
Oh yeah. And then they carry around the nails or the teeth of the bear that they slain.
Yeah.
That they killed in order to become space wolves.
Right. As aspirants, they kill these massive grizzlies, essentially.
Yeah, which is awesome. That's the really cool. That's a really cool story. But that also reminds me that you shouldn't take homebrewing too seriously. Not that he did, but I'm just saying there has to be an element of goofiness, because you are just playing with a bunch of little toys.
Yeah.
So yeah, making it funny and stuff like that was also fun.
And if you want to see the grim darkness of 40K be made funny, I recently started watching Text-to-Speech Device, and that is hilarious, because it's you're talking about WAAAGH Van Dyer and the Reign of Blood, and he's just the whole satiric aspect of it, and it's you're really gonna listen to this dude named WAAAGH Van Dyer. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
But he did have a part 2, right?
Oh yeah. Avatar of Kane or Catan shard?
So I think that depends on how the Avatar of Kane is summoned, because these avatars are summoned in 2 ways. One way, I believe it's a
sacrifice.
A sacrifice, and then there's another way where an Autarch sacrifices his weapons, or I think 5 Autarchs have to sacrifice their weapons, which is imbued with psychic energy, and then the Avatar is born.
Mm-hmm. And then which one's stronger? Do you know?
The Autarch's weapon ones.
Oh really?
Yeah.
You'd think a actual Aldar sacrifice would have made something stronger.
But when you think about it, it's 5 Autarchs, which are chapter masters who have lived for thousands of years, mastered certain paths, usually with the weapon they've had. So they've had that weapon for years, and it's their psychic energy is now being pushed into this god 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things about the lore compared to the tabletop is when you play the tabletop, obviously, like you can play with an avatar of Kane, and you don't think much of it. But in the lore, you have to remind yourself that just because I play with an avatar of Kane every single time that I play Aldar or something, that doesn't mean that, like, it's supposed to be a super last minute, like
a rare thing.
Yeah. Whereas, like, us war gamers are like, nope, if it's good, we're using it over and over again.
That's true.
3 Riptides. Would that be normal in the lore?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends, like, because usually the boar concept is the more technologically advanced, so they'd have more of them at their disposal. But that's going different tributaries.
Yeah.
But yeah, lore-wise, who do you think has it?
Kane.
Because Catan can, like, devastate entire worlds and civilizations.
But it's a shard.
True. Because an uncharted Catan would devastate entire sectors of the galaxy. A shard can still take out a planet.
Yeah. But, like, couldn't Avatar of Kane also do the same thing? On a planet, just a planet?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's a pretty close match. Also, they get beat up a lot. In the lore, the Avatar of Kane is constantly getting destroyed by something, and the Catan shards are constantly being destroyed.
Yeah.
By simple, like, space marines.
Because of the unfortunate circumstance that they are the Xenos, and obviously the main eyes that we see the 40K universe is through the Imperium.
Yeah.
So, of course, the Xenos would be losing more than the humans, the good guys.
Yeah. And then if it's the tabletop, whoever goes first.
Yeah. Catan are monsters. Like, they have that rule where they can only take, like, 4 wounds per phase. And we just recently got the stats revealed for the Avatar of Kane, which this dude can take out a Titan in a single phase, too.
That's crazy.
He can deal 56 wounds if everything goes perfect.
Yeah.
You roll 6s and everything hits and everything goes through the invuln. But that means not to the Catan shard, because it doesn't matter if you're doing 56 wounds. They can only take a max of 4.
They don't have that thing that, who has? That could jump over that rule?
Oh,
I think it's a Necron.
yeah.
The guy with the flowy, the Nightbringer?
The Nightbringer, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he does.
Oh, he doesn't have it? Oh, the Avatar.
Yeah, the Avatar. I don't think he does.
Okay.
Unless they didn't showcase that ability. But at the same time, the Avatar can take half damage whenever he does take damage.
So right now, because of the meta, pretty sure Avatar.
I think so, yeah. I think the Avatar can survive enough to still dish out the damage.
Next question.
This one is by 1011. Why doesn't the Imperium Clone blanks make an entire army of enhanced gnolls?
They used to, or I mean, they still kind of do. That's what the Sisters of Silence are.
Essentially, yeah.
So they're not really, like, cloning them because you're not supposed to do that, but they're going around collecting them.
Yeah.
So.
And not just that, but they are super rare, which is even hard to find a blank. Because the whole thing about, like, blanks, gnolls, pariahs, is that they have an aura of dread. So much so that oftentimes when the mother gives birth to a blank, they're going to kill this child then and there because they, like, fear it.
Yeah. The doctor's just going to go pow right in the face.
Pow right in the kisser.
It makes me think of... oh, no, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other option, too, is usually if they do get found, they'll get taken to the temples and they'll become assassins.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's rare for them to be out in the wild working alongside other Imperium, like, regiments and stuff like that.
Yeah, and who knows if, like, 2 blanks doing it creates another blank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true, but...
Yeah.
Next question. This one comes from... These are long questions. Jesus. Milosh M. Is the Emperor beloved by all? A pineapple on a pizza kind of thing? Thanks. Keep up the good work. I haven't had pineapple on a pizza in a long time.
Yeah. I feel like pineapple is not like a winter thing.
Yeah.
So I guess you don't really do that with pizza in the wintertime. But yeah, I mean, at least that's the universal, like, truth. Everybody praises the Emperor. Everybody loves the Emperor. The Emperor loves you all.
Yep.
But I mean, that's not true, though.
I think it's more of a social structure. Kind of like, nowadays it's easy just to be like, religion is bullcrap kind of thing. Whereas, I don't know, 20 years ago, you couldn't do that.
No, you're a witch. Burn him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are worlds that have been cut off from the Imperium, so obviously they won't know about the Emperor.
Yeah, but you still have the Adeptus Ministorum kind of in there, making sure that, you know, whatever religious practice they have, it still somehow connects to the Emperor.
Right. Imperial Creed is somehow put in there.
Yeah. Which is similar to what I really like that about the lore of the Adeptus Ministorum, because it reminds you of, like, the Catholic Church, and how, like, the Catholic Church, like, regardless of where they would go, there was already pre-established myth, right?
Yeah.
But then they would take that myth and make it, or twist it into Christianity.
Yeah. Catholicism, Christianity, that type of thing.
And that's kind of cool, because then it creates, like, bonds between the old and the new ways of thinking or ideologies and stuff. Next question.
Savio Rebello says, I keep hearing online about how Chaos Space Marines only have 1 wound, and how Chaos Space Marine players have been waiting for 2 wounds for a while. Can you please explain what a wound is? Do you think Chaos Space Marines should have 2 wounds? How many wounds do all the other major factions have? Space Marines, Orcs, Custodians. Thanks. This will help me understand the 40K memes more.
So that's not lore. That's tabletop stuff.
Yeah.
And
a wound is basically the model's life. When you deal damage, it does 1 wound, 2 wounds, 3 wounds.
Yeah, so if you only have 1 wound, you're more likely to die. Chaos Space Marines and regular Space Marines, so like the old school, what are they called? Firstborn Marines, were kind of side by side.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have been, though, because Chaos Space Marines in the lore are stronger than regular Space Marines.
Because they have Chaos boons.
So I agree with the meme that, yes, like, Chaos should be better, stronger than regular Chaos, or than the Space Marines.
Right. Because now that Primaris have 2 wounds, Terminators have like 3 wounds. Basically, it's like, why are you even playing Chaos? Like, it's better to just play Space Marines. And it's like, yeah, you get all the boons from Chaos, but like, it doesn't equal out. Like, it doesn't make sense lore-wise. So yeah. So if you have a regular Space Marine fighting against a regular Chaos Space Marine, the Chaos Space Marine will die quicker. That is why we are waiting on 2 wounds so that they could be up to par.
Or they should do something like they did with the Plague Marines.
Make them tougher.
Yeah.
But then you'd have to make the Plague Marines even more tougher to make them stand out.
That's true. But if it's the lore.
Yes.
And then bring down the Tau even more. Make it so, like, even if another... No, I guess that wouldn't make sense. I was going to say, if a character looks at a Tau Fire Warrior, it dies, but that doesn't make any sense.
Sometimes they do if they're like, mind bullets. They're psychers.
Fire Warrior should have half wound that you could, like, carry over to the next guy.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Freaking that Avatar of Kane. 56 wounds on one guy, the whole unit's dead.
Yeah. That's true. It's a really good unit killer. Wow.
Whoa.
Next question.
This one is by Lucas de Araujo Marquez. Pregunta. Are the creation stories of Nurgle, Khorne, Tzeentch in the human medieval ages / Renaissance actually up-to-date lore, or is it old lore? If so, how would you reconcile humanity birthing 3 chaos gods while being weakly psychic race, while the effing Aldar are being able to only create Slaanesh?
You're right. It's not even... it's not... What it is it's lore that comes from Age of Sigmar, or fantasy back then. So that's why it exists.
Yeah, it's like really old, outdated lore, too. The whole concept of, like, Nurgle created by the Black Plague. It's like, well, no, because, like, there's other worlds with, like you're saying, like the Aldar. There's probably other Xeno races that have been ravaged by, like, disease and pestilence more so than the Black Plague did for humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, the time thing is kind of weird with the warp. Or, like, you can make the argument that it might have happened during that time because chaos is timeless. So Nurgle could have been birthed during the Black Plague, as the final like straw that created him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he could have existed in the past because there's no time in the warp.
Yeah. It's like they always were and always will be. But how do you birth a god? Like, there is a certain point in time where Slaanesh was like, here I am.
Yeah, but then that just highlights how small and puny our brains are compared to the vast understandings of chaos.
We can't fathom God's birth.
No.
We can't fathom time. But yeah, you right, Lucas. You right.
Next question. This one comes from Max Wright. What do you think about the idea of Space Marines with different religious iconography? Wouldn't it be cool to see a Hindu iconography on the Sisters of Battle, maybe from a colony cut off during the Age of Strife? Yeah, and that kind of feeds into the whole concept of theme. Like,
yes.
If you can come up with a good theme that's religious, or it just so happens to be religion, then it's way easier for you to homebrew.
Mm-hmm.
And you should do it.
Yeah. The topic of like nirvana and enlightenment and stuff like that could really do a lot for you.
Yeah. And like you said, it's like old religious practices that existed during the golden age of humanity. They still like made it through the Age of Strife, the Horus Heresy and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the Imperial Creed or the Adeptus Administorum used those stories and somehow blended it into the Emperor. So now Nirvana is actually fighting for the Emperor's army of the light. To the Imperial Creed, to them it's still Nirvana.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's easy. It's easy to twist things to make them work.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is like, well, how did? Because wasn't there multiple instances of where like humanity got rid of like religion or like burned certain like chapels and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, I feel like you can never fully 100% eradicate a belief.
Right.
Especially when beliefs are known to coalesce in the warp.
Yep.
So maybe there's like a minor god of like Buddhism, Hinduism, that kind of thing, and created lesser demons, and like these demons like took control of people in other worlds, and that's how they started, spreading that belief in another world as opposed to just coming directly from Terra.
Yep. So it's
yeah, you gotta think outside the box.
Yeah. I like that idea. Now I want to create a religious-based chapter. I've learned, though, not to say that I'm going to do stuff anymore, because I never do. Next question.
Rafiur Raman. Who is the stronger blank? A Calexis assassin or a Sister of Silence? Based on how much time a assassin and training they have to go through, and like psycho indoctrination and like drugs and stuff, I'm gonna go with the assassin.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, the Sister of Silence is still pretty powerful. After all, they are guarding the Emperor of mankind, but the assassin is meant to do one job and one job perfectly, whereas the Sister has to be kind of more of like well-rounded type thing.
Yep.
I mean, yes, they're both anti-psyker, but the assassin is better killer than like the Sister.
Yep. More training.
Yes.
This question comes from Lucas de Arujo Marquez. Pregunta: Are the creation stories of Nurgle, Khorne, and
we already did that one.
Which do you have another one?
Anime-san, what is the point of the Aldar?
They come from fantasy, so they're just elves.
They're elves,
space elves.
Yep, psychically powerful space elves that pilot machines with ghosts.
And I think right now the purpose of them is to be like they fulfill an ancient or that ideology or that like what is it called, archetype of an ancient empire. Ancient magical empire, and that's their whole thing.
Yeah,
because you have an ancient empire in the Necrons, but they're not magical.
No.
Whereas like with Eldar, they are.
Yes.
So mystical and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then last question. Do you have one?
This one is by. Well, we kind of already talked about that. We
already talked about the Lost Primarchs, right?
Yeah.
Icono? Oh, this is going to be a long one. Okay. Bonjour, fellas. Why didn't the Emperor choose Rogaldorn and Perturabo to reinforce the Imperial Palace? The Imperial Fists specialize in building fortresses and the Iron Warriors in siege warfare. They could have both worked together in making the place stronger, and Perturabo with his legion could have tested the defenses to make sure it was strong enough. That way, the Emperor would have had the alliance of the 4th Legion, making Perturabo happy. Love your videos. Keep making them. I'll watch them. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think the reason why the Emperor didn't have them reinforce and build all this stuff is because he already had certain plans for them.
Yeah.
Like the Imperial Palace was meant to be like this fortress that was like impenetrable. It wasn't. And like the Imperial Fists, or at least Rogaldorn, made the like the defense satellites and stuff like that. But yeah, it just wasn't meant for them to do it.
Yeah, and there was like a purposeful rivalry because they were two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
And also like the concept sounds good on paper of like Perturabo testing the defenses of the Imperial Palace, basically attacking.
Yeah.
But you're attacking. Like, why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like when you're, hacking a computer system that you can go back and fix. Like, no, you attacking the palace walls is like the literal destruction of the palace wall.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they also have the whole, I think it's like a rule, or like since Holy Terra is such a sacred place in the galaxy that like no blood must be spilled on there.
yeah.
So that's why there's no like, I mean, they do have like combat drills and stuff like that, but not to the point where like they're butchering people and stuff like that.
Yeah. But those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. Thank you guys so much for listening and hanging out with us, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah. This has been the Sound Alchemist,
Gershwin.
and we are out.
Oh, I give up my freedom.